The Brony Adventures 4, Chapter 57, Hidden Love. Reddy says, "You're almost home." Blizzard runs up, runs up to them and says, "Stop. Go back to Ponyville. Draconis has a surprise for every pony." Dinosaur says, "Surprise? Let's go." In Ponyville, Schoolie says, "Cool." Twilight says, "That's a big stage." Applejack says, "That's a big screen." Reddy says, "A pony in Equestria must be here." Dinosaur says, "And we got a front row seat." Draconix walks up to the mic and says, "Air Pony, in front of you all and Rain, I would like to say that I am truly deeply sorry for slapping Rain. I have a multi-personality problem. That's no excuse, I know. I should have shown better control, and I'm deeply sorry." Rain smiles and says, "Thank you, Draconix. You didn't have to do this." Draconix says, "Yes, I did." Rain says, "I need to tell you something." Step away from the mic. Draconix walks to her and says, "What?" Rain says, "I want a divorce. Me and Drainus are in love. I'm so sorry." Drainus says, "Sorry, Dad." Draconix says, "It's fine. I got a confession to make too." Draconix walks back to the mic and says, "I am in love with Fluttershy." Every pony says, Dave says, "Wow." Zapper says, "What?" Fluttershy blushes and says, "Oh my." Aqua's and Ariel's jaws drop. Dinosaur says, "What? That's my sister-in-law." "I forgive you about Rain, but that's my brother's wife. Why are all my brothers crazy?" Draconix says, "Brother." Dinosaur says, "Yes, brother?" Draconix smiles and says, "I'm a brother again." "Thanks, Celestia." Dinosaur says, "We sit by each other, remember?" Draconix says, "Yeah, I remember." Clouds form in the sky. They turn dark. Zebra's eyes glow blue. Fluttershy says, "Zebra, please, calm down." Zebra says, "Sorry, not this time." He flies onto the stage beside Durnstorm and says, "Will you help me?" Durnstorm says, I... Please, calm down, brother." Lightning pals and crackles. Draconix screams, "Ah!" Zebra says, "I'll do it myself." Lightning pals and crackles again. Draconix screams again, "Ah!" He falls to his knees. Fluttershy screams, "Zebra, stop, please." Draconix says, "Listen to her, please. My demon form wants to take over." Lightning circles around Zapper. Zapper says, "Let it." He punches Draconix. Draconix transforms. His eyes go blank. He punches at Zapper, but he dodges it and says, "Lightning courses through my veins. Do you really expect to hit me?" Zapper punches Draconix again, but he doesn't flinch. Dinosaur screams, "Get out of there! You don't have a Ranger form! He'll kill you!" Lightning pals and crackles. Dinosaur screams, "Ah!" Zapper says, "Now shut up! This is..." Draconix punches Zapper into the giant screen. Zapper stands up, static coursing through him. He says, "Thank you." Ah! The clouds start to swirl. Lightning shoots out like mad. Fluttershy says, "Oh no. Please, Zapper, don't." Zapper says, "I hope you can stand a shock." The lightning strikes. 6 lightning bolts strike Draconix. Draconix screams, "Ah!" Draconix looks up at Zapper, eyes full of hate and rage. He rams Zapper through the giant screen. The endless massacre begins. Zapper screams, "Ah!" Fluttershy says, "No." Dinosaur watches, frozen in shock. Zapper screams, "Ah!" Draconix's eyes focus. He transforms back into his normal self. He looks at what Sled does Zapper and says, I'm so sorry." Dinosaur slowly walks up to Zapper and says, "My brother." Tears go down his cheeks. He drops to his head and closes his eyes tight and says, "My brother." Fluttershy screams, "No!" She flies onto the stage and heads for Zapper, but Draconis gets in front of her and says, Fletcheye, stop. Tears pour down her cheeks, and she says, You killed him! Draconis says, I'm sorry. Tears go down his cheeks, and he says, I never wanted to hurt you. I'm so sorry. Fletcheye says, Don't cry. It wasn't your fault. He would have stopped pushing you. He wouldn't stop. Do you really love me? Draconis says, Yes, I do, with all my heart. Fletcheye says, I love you too. I just didn't want to hurt Aqua, Ariel, and Zapper. Draconis says, They'll be fine. They want you to be happy. Fletcheye says, I am happy. With you. They kiss. The Dustworm opens his eyes and screams, Aqua, stop! Draconis and Fletcheye look to see a giant tsunami headed for them. Aqua screams, You killed my daddy! Ariel screams, And stole our mother! Dustworm screams, Aqua, stop this! He flies over to her and hugs her, wrapping both wings around her, and says, I'm here. I'll never leave you. Aqua says, Uncle Thunderstorm. The tsunami diminishes. Tears pour out of her eyes. She buries her face into his chest, crying. Thunderstorm says, I'll always be here, my little wave. It's okay. Let it out. Ariel says, He won't get away with this. Thunderstorm extends a wing and pulls her into the hug. Ariel says, Let me go. He'll pay. Thunderstorm says, Let it out. I'm here, my little dolphin. Tears pour out of Ariel's eyes. Ariel says, Let me go, Uncle Thunderstorm. She buries her face into his chest, crying. Fletcheye says, Aqua, Ariel, I'm so sorry. Draconis hugs Fletcheye and says, They'll forgive you, but always hate me. Fletcheye says, Dustworm always been like a second father to them, and now he's the only one they have and will accept. Draconis says, At least they're in caring and safe hooves. Fletcheye says, My girls. My girls. Tears go down her cheeks. She buries her face into Draconis' chest. Dustworm kisses Aqua and Ariel on top of their heads and say, It'll be okay. I'll always be here. For you both. If you need me, just come to me. I don't care how late or early it is. Just come. I'm never too busy for my girls. Aqua says, Thank you, Uncle. Ariel says, I love you, Uncle. Aqua says, I love you too, Uncle. Dustworm smiles and says, My little wave, my little dolphin. He puts his head against theirs and says, You become such strong and beautiful mares. We'll be okay. I promise. I love you both too. And chapter 57. The Brony Avengers 4, chapter 58. The Kiss of Death. Next day in Dustworm's and Rainbow Dash's room, Rainbow Dash opens her eyes and says, Is my mane messy? Dustworm smiles and says, Yes, so is mine. What do you expect when you have sex? A straight mane? Rainbow Dash says, It would be nice. Save me the trouble of fixing it. Dustworm says, I'm just glad we didn't wake Star. Rainbow Dash smiles and says, Me too. Ow! Thunderstorm! Thunderstorm says, You know you like it. Rainbow Dash blushes and says, I do, but we just did it last night, and Star needs to be fed. Thunderstorm says, Oh, right, I'll get his food. Star says, Rainbow Dash says, Calm down, Daddy's getting your food. Thunderstorm says, Here you go, buddy. Some nice applesauce. The door bursts open. Dave says, Thunderstorm, come quick! Bradley's sick. Thunderstorm says, What? They run to David's and Charlie's room. Thunderstorm bursts in. Flash says, She's real sick. Thunderstorm says, I thought you were. Flash says, David and Dad bailed me out. Thunderstorm says, Oh. Nurse Redheart says, She has grounder disease. Thunderstorm and David say, What does that mean? Nurse Radar says, it's a disease that eats the muscle in your wings. If left untreated, she'd lose her wings. Dave says, no. Dunsmore says, how do you treat it? Nurse Redheart says, it's a very strong disease. You need to be good and powerful at magic to cure it. Dunsmore walks up to Barely. Barely says, I don't want to lose my wings. Tears fall down her cheeks. Dunsmore says, you won't. His horn starts to glow. He puts it against Barely's head. Her entire body starts to glow. She blushes, looking up at Thunderstorm. Flash glares at him. Thunderstorm raises his head and says, for the spell to work, I have to do something that both me and you, David, don't want to happen. David says, what? Thunderstorm says, I have to kiss her. For at least 5 seconds. David says, what? Rainbow Dash says, excuse me? Thunderstorm says, read the spell book. It says so. He hands Rainbow Dash the spell book. Rainbow Dash says, fine, but only this one time. Thunderstorm says, thank you, Dashy. Rainbow Dash says, hurry up before I change my mind. Thunderstorm leans down. Barely blushes blood red and says, oh, my. They kiss. Barely's wings start to glow. Dave says, it's past 5 seconds. Thunderstorm lifts his head. Barely's wings stop glowing. Barely says, wow. Flash says, I'll kill you. Barely says, oh, stop it. I still love you. I just... Thunderstorm says, have a crush. I know. I've heard it before. Rainbow Dash says, what? From who? Thunderstorm says, did I say before? I meant, I got nothing. He zooms out the room. Rainbow Dash says, get back here! She zooms after him. Dave says, he's dead. You okay, honey? Barely says, I feel better and my wing doesn't hurt anymore. Nurse Redheart says, what? What Dustin did worked? I've never seen it cured by that before, but it worked. You're cured. Dave says, thanks, Celestia. Barely says, I have more great news. I'm pregnant. Dave says, by who? Barely says, by Flash, of course. Dave says, I was afraid you'd say that. Barely says, Dad. Dave says, I'm just kidding. I couldn't be happier. I'm a grandpa. Flash says, I'm a dad. Oh, Celestia, I got a lot of things to buy. See y'all later. He zooms out the room. Nurse Redheart says, and I should get back to the hospital. Bye. David and Barely say, bye, thank you. Nurse Redheart says, you're welcome. She leaves the room. Dave says, I wonder if Dustworm's alright. He looks down the hallway. His eyes go wide. He slowly walks back to Barely. Barely says, what's wrong? What did you see? Dave says, you don't want to know. Barely says, they're having sex, aren't they? Dave says, yep. Barely says, get the video camera. Dave says, Barely. Okay. End of chapter 58. Brony Adventures 4 chapter 59, Power versus Brains. In a secret lab 20 miles outside of Ponyville. Trigger says they haven't eaten for weeks. Eclipse says go in there and check on them. Trigger says yes sir. He walks into the lab and walks up to Ratchet and says, hey, you okay? Hey. Trigger's hoof goes right through Ratchet. Trigger pulls out his walkie-talkie and says, we got a breach! Lockdown now! The alarm sounds. Eclipse says, what's wrong? Trigger says, they're holograms. Eclipse says, damn it. Find them! Underground, Tinker says, how far have we gone? Ratchet says, we should be under Dusworm's castle right now. Tinker says, what is this place? There's a door and so many tunnels. Ratchet says, secret tunnels that Thunderstorm had built for emergency evacuation in case another apocalypse ever started. Tinker says, oh, hell and hurricane walk out of the shadows and say, "Hi, Tinker. Hi, Ratchet." Tinker says, "Hey, Hell. Hey, Hurricane." Ratchet says, "Wait, if you two are here." Thunderstorm says, "Hi, Ratchet." Ratchet turns around and says, "How did you find us?" Thunderstorm says, "Lucky guess. Look, by breaking out, you have made yourselves wanted. You can stay down here. I'll hide you." Tinker says, What about them?" Hurricane says, "We're loyal to King Thunderstorm." Hell says, "If he hides you, we hide you." Tinker says, "Thanks." David and Frost say, "Hi." Thunderstorm looks at them and says, "What the buck? David? Frost?" David says, "Pinky taught us." Thunderstorm says, "Get your hooves and everything else away from my niece." Thunderstorm walks up to Frost. Dave says, "We were just playing around." Shh! He points his armor at David's neck and says, "If you ever say that again, Charlie will be a widow." Dave says, "Not like that. You got a dirty mind." Thunderstorm says, "Never again." Frost says, What did he say?" Thunderstorm folds up his wings and says, Nothing. Tag, you're it." Thunderstorm runs off. Frost says, "I'll catch you." She runs after him. Ratchet says, we really need some food. I'm hungry." Tinker says, "Me too." Hell says, here's some apples and oranges." Tinker says, "Ow! Get your penis out of my flank." Hurricane says, "Oh yeah, I'm good now." Tinker says, "Ew, you released, didn't you?" Hurricane smiles. Ratchet points a futuristic looking gun at Hurricane's head and says, "My gun likes to release too." Frost runs by giggling and says, "You can't catch me, you can't catch me." Thunderstorm says, "Dang, you're fast." He winks at Tinker. Tinker smiles and says, "Some ponies are natural born caretakers." Ow, it still hurts. Frost runs by giggling. Thunderstorm laughs and says, "Get back here, you little sneak." Ratchet says, "Yep." He presses the gun up against Hurricane's head. Dave says, why are y'all here?" Ratchet says, "To hide out." Dave says, "Oh, okay." Thunderstorm was up to Ratchet and Tinker laughing, with Frost on his back laughing too. Thunderstorm says, Okay, back to business." Frost says, "I love you, Grandpa." Thunderstorm smiles and says, "I love you too, my little ice cube. Anyways, is that a gun?" Ratchet says, "Yep." Thunderstorm says, "You're pointing a gun at not only one of my royal guards, but he's also my cousin." Tinker says, "He stuck his penis in my flank." Thunderstorm says, "Oh, well, who can blame him? You got a nice, skinny, tight, and sexy flank." Ratchet says, "Thunderstorm, shut up." Thunderstorm says, "I'm saying the truth. She's quite pretty, too. Like a newborn son." Tinker blushes. Thunderstorm wrestling a rounder. Ratchet points the gun at Thunderstorm. Thunderstorm says, "Hurricane, get out of here now." Hurricane says, "But I'm one of your royal guards." Thunderstorm says, "Now." Hurricane says, "Yes, sir." He leaves the room. Ratchet says, "Apologize, Thunderstorm," and step away from her. Thunderstorm says, "Bullets can't hurt me. My armor will deflect them." Ratchet says, "This gun doesn't use bullets." Thunderstorm flies by Ratchet at sonic starboard speed and takes the gun and makes a U-turn back to Tinker and lands and says, "Smart is valuable, but so is speed." He snaps the gun in half. Its halves fall onto the ground. Ratchet says, "You shouldn't have been able to break that." Thunderstorm says, "There ain't nothing you can build that can beat me. I will never let technology beat me. I'd rather lose to an Ursa Major, which I do. Stupid beast." The door bursts open. Berdash says, "Thunderstorm, Skrilloo's sick." Thunderstorm says, What? Berdash runs after him. Hale runs after him too. Dave says, "Well, so what do you want to do now?" Ratchet and Tinker say, "Get out." Dave says, "Well, buck you." I'm just kidding. David leaves the chamber. Tinker says, "Ow, I need to go to Manhattan for a vacation." Ratchet says, "Go. You deserve one. I'll stink you out." Tinker says, thank you, Daddy. Can I take Thunder?" Ratchet says, "No. Let's go." Tinker says, "Aww." Tinker blushes and says, "Ow!" Ratchet looks back and sees a ring of purple night sky and shining stars. Ratchet says, What just happened?" Tinker says, "Don't want to slap my flank. Let's go to Manhattan." Ratchet says, "You're going. I need to have a talk with Thunderstorm." Tinker says, "Why?" I like all this attention. It makes me feel sexy." Ratchet says, "And that's why I had to stop it." And chapter 59. Thanks for coming back. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.